Hello and welcome to listeners. This is Mahatma Gandhi Letters, an approach to understand Mahatma Gandhi's life through the letters and articles he has written. In previous episodes, we have seen that how Gandhi made aware about the new law being imposed by the Europeans on the Indian immigrants in South Africa and created a sensation by writing in the journals. The name of the new law that was going to be introduced by the government, which was under the control of European white people, was the Franchise Law Amendment Bill. According to this new law, Indians who migrated to South Africa were losing their right to vote. This sparked heated debates for and against the new law in South African journals. Gandhi, who continued to voice against this, wrote his first appeal in June 1894 on behalf of Indian traders and farmers to the administration of the Natal province where he lived. Those days, Gandhi had faith in British administration. So Gandhi explained in this article to the administration of Natal how and why Indians, who historically have cultural heritage and deserve respect, were entitled to vote. Friends, this is a very important article in order to understand Gandhi's personality. This letter is a perfect example of how clever Gandhi was in understanding the adversary, and by then, in making use of historical records and spiritual sentiments in order to make his case stronger. Here we can see how Gandhi used the positive remarks made by British scholars in the past about Indians to make his case before the British. Moreover, this was the first ever kind of communication letter written to British authorities by Indian immigrants of South Africa. The article called Petition to Natal Assembly had 24 main points, and it goes like this. Durban, June 28, 1894. 2. The Honorable the Speaker and members of the Legislative Assembly of the Colony of Natal. The petition of the Indians resident in the Colony of Natal. Humbly sheweth 1. That your petitioners are British subjects who have come from India and settled in the colony. 2. Your petitioners are many of them registered as electors duly qualified to vote at the election of members to your Honorable Council and Assembly. 3. Your petitioners have read with feelings of unfeigned regret and alarm the debate as reported in the newspapers on the second reading of the Franchise Law Amendment Bill. 4. Your petitioners, with the greatest deference to your Honorable House, beg to dissent entirely from the views of the various speakers, and feel constrained to say that the real facts fail to support the reasons adduced in justification of the passing of the unfortunate measure. 5. The reasons, as reported in the newspapers, brought forward in support of the measure, your petitioners understand, are A. That the Indians have never exercised the franchise in the land they come from. B. That they are not fit for the exercise of the franchise. 6. Your petitioners respectfully beg to press on the notice of the honorable members that all the facts and history point the other way. 7. The Indian nation has known and has exercised the power of election from times far prior to the time when the Anglo-Saxon races first became acquainted with the principles of representation. 8. In support of the above, your petitioners beg to draw the attention of your Honorable Assembly to Sir Henry Sumner Maine's Village Communities, where he has most clearly pointed out that the Indian races have been familiar with representative institutions almost from time immemorial. That eminent lawyer and writer has shown that the Teutonic mark was hardly so well organized or so essentially representative as an Indian village community until the precise technical Roman form was engrafted upon it. 9. Mr. Chisholm Anstey, in a speech delivered before the East Indian Association in London, said, "We are apt to forget in this country, when we talk of preparing people in the East by education and all that sort of thing, for municipal government and parliamentary government, that the East is the parent of municipalities. Local self-government, in the widest acceptation of the term, is as old as the East itself. No matter what may be the religion of the people who inhabit what we call the East, there is not a portion of the country from east to west, from north to south, which is not swarming with municipalities. And not only so, but like to our municipalities of old, they are all bound together as in a species of network, so that you have, ready-made to your hand, the framework of the great system of representation. Every caste in every village or town has its own rules or regulations, and elects representatives and furnishes an exact prototype of the Saxon Weetons, from which have sprung the present parliamentary institutions. 10. The word panchayat is a household word throughout the length and breadth of India, and it means, as the honorable members may be well aware, a council of 5 elected by the class of the people to whom the 5 belong, for the purpose of managing and controlling the social affairs of the particular caste. 11. The state of Mysore has at the present moment a representative parliament, called the Mysore Assembly, on the exact model of the British Parliament. 12. The trading Indian community now residing in Durban have their panchayat or council of 5, and in case of matters of pressing importance, their deliberations are controlled by the community at large, who can, according to the constitution of the body, overrule their decisions by a sufficient majority. Here is, your memorialists submit, a proof of their capabilities as regards representation. 13. Indeed, so much has the Indians' ability to understand representative institutions been recognized by Her Majesty's government that India enjoys municipal local self-government in the truest sense of the term. 14. There were, in 1891, 755 municipalities and 892 local boards in India, with 20,000 Indian members. This would give some idea of the magnitude of the municipalities and the electorate. 15. If further proof be needed on this head, your petitioners draw the honorable members' attention to the recently passed India Councils Bill, whereby the system of representation has been introduced even into the legislative councils of the various presidencies of India. 16. Your honorable assembly will, your petitioners trust, see therefore, that the exercise of the franchise by them is no extension of a new privilege they have never before known or enjoyed. But on the contrary, the disqualification to exercise it would be an unjust restriction which, under similar circumstances, would never be put on them in the land of their birth. 17. Hence, also, your petitioners submit that the fear that they may, if they were allowed to exercise the privilege of franchise, become propagandists of agitation and instruments of sedition in that great country they come from, is, to say the least of it, without ground. 18. Your petitioners deem it unnecessary to dwell upon the minor points and the needlessly harsh remarks made in the course of the debate on the second reading. They would, however, crave leave to give some extracts which bear on the subject under consideration. Your petitioners would rather have been judged by their works than have sought to justify themselves by quoting what others have thought of their race. But under the present circumstances, they have no other course left open to them, since, owing to want of free intercourse, there seems to prevail much misunderstanding about their capabilities. 19. Speaking at a meeting at the Assembly Rooms, Kennington, Mr. F. Pincott said, "We have heard a great deal in this country about the ignorance of the Indian people and their unfitness for appreciating the great advantages of representative government. All that is really very foolish, because representative government has nothing to do with education. It has a great deal to do with common sense, and the people of India are gifted with as much common sense as we have. We exercised the right of election, and we had representative institutions many hundreds of years before we possessed any education whatever. Therefore, the educational test goes simply for naught. Those who know the history of our country know very well that 200 years ago the grossest superstition and ignorance prevailed, and yet we had our representative institutions." 20. Sir George Birdwood, writing on the general character of the people of India, thus sums up, "The people of India are in no intrinsic sense our inferiors, while in things measured by some of the false standards, false to ourselves, we pretend to believe in, they are our superiors." 21. Says Sir Thomas Munro, one of the governors of Madras, "I do not know what is meant by civilizing the people of India. In the theory and practice of good government they may be deficient, but if a good system of agriculture, if unrivaled manufacture, if the establishment of schools for reading and writing, if the general practice of kindness and hospitality are amongst the points that denote a civilized people, then they are not inferior in civilization to the people of Europe." 22. Professor Max Muller thus speaks of the much abused and more misunderstood Indian. If I were asked under what sky the human mind has most fully developed some of its choicest gifts, has most deeply pondered on the greatest problems of life, and has found solutions of some of them, which well deserve the attention even of those who have studied Plato and Kant, I should point to India. 23. To appeal to the finer feelings, your petitioners respectfully venture to point out that the Franchise Law Amendment Bill, if passed, would have a tendency to retard, instead of hastening, the process of unification the flower of the British and the Indian nations are earnestly striving for. 24. Your petitioners have purposely let the English authorities speak on their behalf, without any comments to amplify the above extracts. It is yet possible to multiply such extracts, but your petitioners confidently trust that the above will prove sufficient to convince your Honorable Assembly of the justice of their prayer, and they earnestly beseech your Honorable Assembly to reconsider your decision, or to appoint a commission to inquire into the question as to whether the Indians resident in the colony are fit to exercise the privilege of franchise before proceeding further with the bill. And for this act of justice and mercy, your petitioners, as in duty bound, shall forever pray, etc., etc. Dear listeners, you were listening to the article called Petition to Natal Assembly, written by Mahatma Gandhi. In the coming episodes, we will see how Gandhi encountered legislators of Natal. Thank you for listening to Mahatma Gandhi Letters. This is an approach to understand Gandhiji's life through the letters and articles he has written.